Welcome to the NBA Triple Double Show powered by SportsMemo. I'm your host, Ronald Cabang from Wager Talk at UCapper Sports on Twitter. I'll be joined by Moneyline Matt and Tony Finn. Today, we're going to talk about Game 6 here, the Heat and the Celtics. Obviously, they forced the Game 6, winning 2 straight here from the Celtics side. Before we get into Game 6, though, I do want to talk about what we got going on over at SportsMemo and WagerTalk.com. We have the free live odds page. We have the site, the deals pages with promo codes and all that. Cappers provide free picks and analysis on a daily basis, along with their daily packages that they do have for sale as well. If you guys want to utilize those 2 pages, sportsmemo.com, wagertalk.com, it is free to sign up. Obviously, the daily packages have a price connected to them, but for the most part, you can get a lot of free content there. Obviously, we do a lot of shows on Sports Memo and Wager Talk, so make sure you guys go over there after the show here. Also, before you go, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button here on YouTube. It only helps our show grow here as we continue to close out the NBA Finals. With that said, let's get Matt and Tony up here with me. Guys, as always, we want to start the show pretty transparent here. I missed another one in the NBA, the Miami Heat over 103.5. I did take that before the Gabe Vincent news that he was going to be sitting out. It was only I think they went under by like a 5.5 or 6.5 points. That was a tough one there. I thought whether or not they win or lose, the offense would bounce back. But second straight game here under 100 points. Celtics defense really showing up, creating a lot of turnovers. But Matt, let's go to you here. How's everything been going with the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, NBA playoffs as a whole have been going very well. This round was definitely a little bit of a hiccup. As you guys know, I was on the Lakers, didn't do too well there. But have some futures with the Celtics. I do have Jason Tatum's leader in points throughout the series, leader in rebounds throughout the series, and Jason Tatum MVP. And as you guys know, I'm still holding out hope for the Boston Celtics here. I think they have a lot of momentum at this point in time. And, Ron, to your point, with Gabe Vincent out, and Tyler Herro still out, that's a lot of offense that they're going to be missing. So I think we're going to need a big game from Jimmy Butler, or we're going to be looking at Game 7. So, again, as always, I'm just excited we got some more basketball, and I'm ready to break it down with you guys.
Yeah, Tony, I know we were in Slack, and you were mentioning, what's going to happen? Are we going to have a game? Are we going to have a show on Friday? I think you were pretty excited about it. So how's everything going with you in the NBA playoffs?
Well, I told you I'd make the call so we'd have a show. and I did.
You did make the call.
And here we are. I just wasn't sure whether you guys, it's been a long season. Maybe you're ready to move on to the finals. I had a vested interest. I had a vested interest in Boston. I should be on tilt, but I'm old, been through this a few times, so I'm not on tilt really. But I had over the total in Game 4. And if you saw that game, I had 216.5, I think, came in at 215. But even Miami being down, and even the backups dribbled the ball down and held on to it when I thought, I got a 30-40% chance of getting this over because Boston didn't care, and Miami should just go to the rim and get my 2 and get my over, right? I'm quite certain that people here, maybe in our audience that are listening, that had the under saying, "Shut up, Tony." He did just the right thing, And then yesterday, I had a big play, a 5% play on Matt said he had Miami over. I had Boston over 211. Or maybe it was Ron. Maybe you said you had the over. Maybe it was you, Ron, said they had the over. Yeah. I had over 211 on Boston. Now, that game yesterday, you guys have fine eyes, and the eye test, and Miami for the most part was never even in contact. They weren't even, if you were a Miami fan, you left that game after the first quarter, maybe halfway through the second. You just basically said, "Look, I can see it, I see the writing on the wall." However, that 20-point fourth quarter, and I got it's just incredible. Those are 2 really tough losses, 2 total losses. But I've been pretty good with totals. I think I had over the last two NBA finals, I was 2-0 on big ticket totals until yesterday because I played that 211 over. I played big. I liked it. I played not only that, I played the first quarter over. I played the first half over, and both of those cash. In their sleep they cash. So only scoring, getting only 45 points from Boston in the second half was a little disappointing because they could have more. Not only that, guys, I had Williams over 10.5 points and rebounds. 10. I had Williams over 6.5 points. 6. And he really wasn't that involved offensively. When the announcers are telling you guys, when they're telling the audience, listen, 4 Boston players with 20 points or more, and you have a backup, essentially a backup, a guy that's going to pick up some junk points or some maybe some sloppy seconds or something. You even with only a 6.5 and only a 10.5 on, you're feeling like maybe you're not going to get there, and I didn't. However, it's going okay. It's going okay. I had LA in a sweep, a 4-0 sweep, which was
nice.
Now, but the most important thing, I think I announced you. The most important thing is that I had a bet with Ski. And I won that bet. That was like, that's the triple double.
Yeah, man, that's pretty funny. I had a similar situation too with that total. Like you would think that it was gonna go over with the last minute or so. It was actually the Lakers game. I had over 224.5. I thought the Lakers were gonna foul, get Denver to the free throw line and push us over. They ended up playing defense that last 24 seconds or whatever it was. They trusted themselves to score with like 2 seconds left or whatever. So that was a tough break in that fourth in the last 20 seconds or whatever of that game. So
it just hit me, Ron.
I feel your pain.
I want to reiterate that because I didn't like that strategy at all. I didn't either. If you, I couldn't believe that that the King didn't go, go postal. On that final drive, it could have easily been called foul, but they probably weren't going to call that foul in that situation as you just described with seconds left, 2, 3.
For sure.
But in a regular season game, not in the final seconds of a big game, that's probably a foul.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Let's get into this game 6 here between the Heat and the Celtics. Matt, I know we've been doing this show all week, and one thing that we heard, obviously going into Game 4, series sweep, right? This was going to be a sweep. We heard Joe Mazzulla lost the locker room. All of a sudden, the Celtics come in, win 2 straight games, and now we're here. We have a Game 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals. This is a spot that the Heat absolutely need to win here. They do not want to go to Boston for a Game 7. Boston, like I mentioned earlier, Boston has limited this Heat team to under 100 points in 2 straight games. In Game 5, it was their defense, right? In Game 6, defense again, even though the Heat shot over 50% from the field. The Celtics created 16 turnovers. They had 13 steals. Boston was able to kind of slow the pace down, create those turnovers. Those were the 2 big things that I've seen in Game 4 and Game 5 that were huge difference makers here. A couple of things to mention before we go to you guys to break this down. Since the 2006 playoffs, there's been 6 series where a team has rallied from down 0-3 to get to a Game 6. In all 6 of those games, the team that's down 2-3 has lost. The last time a series where there was a 0-3, right? It was 0-3, and it was forced to a Game 7 was in 2002. The Mavs. It was the Dallas Mavericks and the Portland Blazers. The Blazers took that series to Game 7 after going down 0-3. Dallas ended up winning that series. Man, this is a historic game. Yeah, I think historic series. Celtics have a possibility to win this outright, even after starting down 0-3. Let's go to you, Tony. I know you're pretty excited about this game here, and like you mentioned, very invested in this series. What are your thoughts on this one? Can the Celtics get it to Game 7? And obviously, I think if there is a Game 7, it would probably be on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So, if it gets to Game 7, your thoughts on a Game 7?
I started writing some game breakdown in a small article, and I started the article out with, as you just outlined, Ron, what is the history of teams that are down 3-0? How far have they taken it? How many Game 4s have ended up in a sweep? All the percentages, and I just if it was virtual paper, but I just crumbled it up, threw it away because it's not really how I handicap. It's not really how I believe in odds or metrics, and it's equivalent to the guy that comes to the table and somebody's rolled 10 straight sevens, and the guy says there's no possible way he can roll another 7, and I'm pushing in. I'm not just pushing in on the don't. I'm pushing in the whole damn mortgage, or 10 mortgages, whatever the case may be. Every time you pick the dice up, every time you roll them, the odds are exactly the same to roll a 7. I don't care if you've rolled 2,000 straight. You pick the dice up, as long as we don't have weighted dice or we do something funny, the odds are the same. So what we have is a Boston team that needs to win 2 straight. How many times do you think they've won 2 straight? How many times have they won 2 straight with a team that's really tired? If you saw Butler play yesterday and you paid close attention, they became a little more physical with Butler, and he didn't seem to have the same lift or jump or energy. He didn't touch the ball as many times as I thought he would. He didn't take over at the top of the key as many times as I thought he would without Gabe Vincent, without Tyler Hero, without Oladipo. I mean, you're looking at a backcourt that's pretty thin, and Boston did exactly what I thought they would do. If you saw, off makes, off misses. They threw the outlet pass, tried to get to half court, and start every position in transition, every single possession. It worked. That's really what created some of the turnovers. Was there became a desperation. I hate to say there's going to be a duplicate, or it's going to be a mirror game of what it was in Game 5. But some of the desperate feeling without Gabe, and with an older. And I think, listen, I'm not certain that Lowry plays on half the teams in the NBA right now in a backcourt outside of Miami because he's been in that culture and they like him, and I like Lowry too. But too many sandwiches this offseason. Looks a little bit overweight. Looks a little slower than he has in the past. So that said, you look at the stats and you broke it down, Ron. Pretty much same shooting percentage as Boston. Didn't go to the line quite as many times as Boston, but as far as rebounds, pretty even. Turnovers was a difference. That was the difference. The 16 turnovers, I think, is what Miami had to 7 or 8 or whatever it was for Boston. They were clean. Some of them were fortuitous, but the deal is, and again, Ron, Matt, you guys have both talked about it, both of you. Boston's the better team, top to bottom. They're the deeper team. They cannot, without Gabe Vincent, I wrote that they were going to be less than defensively than they were offensively. What happened yesterday was that both transpired. I thought they were less offensively and they were less defensively. I thought Boston got a lot more easy looks than they've had the first 3 games or 4 games. I'm at the point now, and we'll get to the best bets. I'll talk about it a little bit. But if they win this Game 6 in Miami and South Beach, game, set, match.
Yeah, it seems like it. One thing I want to mention too, before we get to Matt, is one of my buddies here. He sent me a link of a beat writer, Miami Heat beat writer, saying that Gabe Vincent should be able to play a Game 6 here. Obviously, he made a big impact in this series. For scoring wise, right? And like you mentioned, Tony, the fatigue. You can start to see the fatigue in Jimmy Butler. It took a lot longer than I expected. For the most part, he's been carrying this team on their back. But like you mentioned, Lowry, man, he got inserted into that starting lineup, didn't provide any punch at all, neither defensively or offensively, to be honest. But there really was no other option at the point guard position other than Lowry, because if you come off the bench, you got Martin, you got what was it, Hightower, you got Duncan Robinson. None of those guys are true point guards. Even I would even say Gabe Vincent isn't a true point guard either. He's a 2 in a point guard body, in my opinion. So I don't know if Gabe Vincent coming back will be a big difference maker here, but for the most part, I mean, I think it would at least relieve some offensive burden off of Jimmy Butler there. But Matt, what are your thoughts on this Game 6 here?
Yeah, for me, I personally think, we talked about it on the last show. I talked about it being, am I crazy? Because, I'm continuing to think the Celtics are going to find a way to win some games, to string some wins together and potentially win this series. Because, this Miami Heat team, and, Tony reiterated it, they're just not as good as the Boston Celtics. And that's the bottom line to me. This is the first time throughout the NBA playoffs that this Miami Heat team has also lost multiple games in a row. So I think that could be something to factor in. And this Celtics team, you even go back to the regular season, they're a very streaky team. They've had some weird stretches where they've lost games at home, and they've lost a couple games in a row, and then they rebound and they find a way to to streak some wins together after that. And the two-headed monster of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they still really haven't had that big game. And Jaylen Brown did get it going last game. He had 15 points at halftime, ended up with 21, so did miss the prop that I gave out. But he started to get it going. He started getting it looked like he was a lot more confident out there too, being more aggressive. Jason Tatum was facilitating well. He was still attacking the boards, getting rebounds, things of that nature. But something that I actually found very important on the Boston Celtics side was that of Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart was really struggling throughout this series, and now 2 games in a row, he's taken 10-plus shots. He had 11 in Game 4, and he had 23 in Game 5. So he shot 7 of 12, 4 of 6 from 3. And when you have those secondary players doing their part, contributing, scoring points efficiently, and they're next to guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're going to be very tough to beat. Derek White came out, had a very big game as well, 20-plus points. And the guy who still hasn't really come out, broken out of his shell for this series is Malcolm Brogdon. And I understand Malcolm Brogdon may be dealing with some injury issues, but you see that on the Miami Heat side as well. It means you still have to come out, you still have to contribute. And when you look at the Miami Heat now, if Gabe Vincent actually does have a serious ankle injury or is playing and is a little hindered, it's going to be very tough for Jimmy Butler here because this offense gets thinner and thinner. And, a lot of guys have been stepping up. They've been incredibly clutch, a historic run for the Miami Heat. But everything that my mind tells me is this team is going to fall off at some point, and they've gone way longer than I initially thought. But I still believe this team is going to fall off here. And I think this Celtics team has a very good chance to come back, win this series. And, because so much is on Jimmy Butler now. If Gabe Vincent comes back and can't score, his 15 points, whatever it is, can't contribute effectively, that's a lot for Jimmy to shoulder. And, I know he's done it before, but when you have Tatum and Brown on the opposite side who can potentially match that, it makes it that much tougher. And then you're relying on guys like Max Strus. You're relying on Bam Adebayo to knock down all those mid-range shots. You're relying on Caleb Martin, Caleb Martin's been awesome, man. He has been playing some great basketball, both sides of the court. I really do respect him, even back from the Hornets days. He was just one of those grinder, blue-collared workers. You got to love the NBA guys who do that kind of stuff. And that's what this Miami Heat team is. It is a blue-collared NBA team, and you have to respect that. But for me, the line's at 2.5 right now. If you're on the Celtics, I would grab that 2.5 personally. Last time the Celtics were getting 2.5, 3 points in Miami, it climbed to around 4.5. So, and I think we might have a similar situation here, especially with the Celtics winning 2 in a row. I think that might be a public team as well. But for me, it's hard not to like the Celtics. I think too much is going to be on Jimmy Butler. And although I expect him to go out and have a good game, I don't think it's going to be enough. And I think the Boston Celtics are going to get this game in Miami. And to Tony's point, I think that's it. I think they go home, and I think they get Game 7 as well, and they have a historic comeback here in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I know we were talking about the Celtics side here. Obviously, I think we're all in agreement that this is possibly a situation where we see a Game 7 here. One thing you mentioned, Matt, was Marcus Smart and his the last 2 games being able to put up more opportunities from the offensive side of the ball, right? Being able to put up more shots. He went from 7.3. I was looking at props for this game specifically. It's going to be one of my best bets. But one reason why I'm going with Tatum, I'm pretty much going to say what I was going to say in the other part, the best bet section. But my best bet is going to be Tatum over as assists, because if you look at this situation with Marcus Smart, the reason why he's putting up more shots is because Tatum is becoming the facilitator. In the first 3 games of the series, Marcus Smart had he averaged 7.3 assists on 11 potential. In the last 2 games where Tatum has been more of the facilitator, 4 assists on 4.5 potential. So they've been able to switch roles here and create more of like a a problem defensively for Miami with Tatum being that main facilitator, because now he's able to either drive, take the mid range, or pass it out and trust his teammates. And with that said, like defensively, Miami has not been able to figure out how to stop that yet in the last two games. Obviously, the defense of Boston has helped as well, right? Limiting Miami to under 102 straight. But that's one thing that I've noticed in the last two games that they've switched up offensively is having the ball in Tatum's hands a little bit more. And he's been doing a little bit better at not turning the ball over as much either. So that's one thing that I did notice. I know we touched on the side here, kind of all aligned with Boston, but what are your guys' thoughts with the total? Tony, let's go to you here.
Yeah. My thoughts on the total were, as I played them, really, we talked about it a little bit, or I did a little bit, and that was game 4, where I had over the 216.5. It came in at 215. In truth, with about 4 or 5 minutes to go in the game, I thought about doubling up, and I went to look at the total, and it was at 215. That was in game live at that point in time. So the bookmakers did a good job. But what I did was, I did the same thing in game 5. I played Boston's team total over. Here's what I think about the total. I haven't trusted Miami. I thought they would get fatigued. I thought Butler started looking a little tired even prior to last night's game. And it came to fruition. Where I failed was I failed in playing the team total high, at least heavier in the game 4. And yesterday I went heavy and came up short. I don't think it's a coincidence, Ron, that Miami has scored less than Boston's defense in this series is the equivalent of being the 5th worst defense in the regular season. They're giving up 120
Crazy.
plus per 100 possessions, right? Horrible. It's amazing how much better a defense can be when you're playing from ahead instead of behind.
Yeah.
And if they're playing from ahead, do you see anything different in game 5, even though it's going to be in South Beach? I don't, especially even if, as Matt talked about and you talked about, without Gabe Vincent, not only are they shorthanded and the first 5 points and defensively on the bench as well, and he really is a good facilitator. He really does a great job of driving lane and making good decisions on the doubles when somebody cheats and gets off their man. He finds them. Without that, I don't see a big difference coming in this game in Miami. Even if he plays hurt, can he facilitate like he did for the first 15 games of the playoffs? Right, he started 15, 17 straight, whatever it is, and been pretty good, 17 points and change. Right, the total, I'm still looking. I'll be looking, and I'm going to guess that we're going to have about a 207, a 107, 108 for Boston tomorrow night. That's going to be the team total. If I'm going to go over a total, it's going to be Boston's team total. I'm very, very shaky. At least I'm not quite as confident on the game total at all right now, knowing where it's going to go, because I don't know about Gabe and I don't trust Miami right now.
Yep. Yeah, no, I get it. It makes sense. I mean, if you just look at historic numbers, game 6s and game 7s typically are a lot lower scoring than normal, just because every possession starts to become more important. The defense starts to kick in, fatigue on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of things point towards an under here. I know the total is really low, but Matt, before we move to the best bet section, want to take your get your take on the total here.
Yeah, 100%. Me and Tony see completely eye to eye on this. If I were to go anywhere, it would be the Boston Celtics team total over. And, when you look at this Miami Heat team, there's just not that much offense on this team. Even if Jimmy Butler goes off, has a big game, 35 points, 40 points, I can't trust Kyle. Kyle Lowry's not only hindered with injury, but he's not that guy who's going to go and get you 15 points, consistently throughout a series. Max Strus, he's kind of the same thing. He's very up and down. Maybe one game he'll get you 15, the next game he's going to get you 5. And Bam Adebayo, he's been playing great this series. I'm very impressed with how Bam has been playing. But again, if that mid-range jumper is not going, Bam's typically not like a 20-plus point guy. He's typically right around that 15-point range. He gets that rebounds. He facilitates a little bit. And so much pressure will be on Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo to go out and score a lot of points. When the opposing team knows that, it's that much more difficult. I think they're going to be sending a lot at guys like Jimmy, guys like Bam. This Boston Celtics team does have a good duo with both Robert Williams and Al Horford, so if they want to, they can run traps and stuff like that, even though I don't really expect them to. I think they'll continue to run Bam straight up for the most part. And then, one thing I failed to mention earlier is Grant Williams. He's been getting additional minutes throughout this series, and he has been doing a good job on Jimmy Butler. He's a big body. He's a 6'7" player. It's not that easy to move him around. And last game in Miami, Grant Williams actually came alive from the outside. And it's funny too, Tony, I was looking at the Grant Williams prop as well. I was like 6.5. Man, I got to imagine he could probably get there. And I thought he would as well, but did not. Maybe he gets it done in Miami. He's been one of those great role players to come in, guard Jimmy Butler, guys like that. And, when you're relying on Gabe Vincent, or who knows if he even plays, but Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, that points to the under in my eyes. So, yeah, I would be looking at that Heat team total under, Boston Celtics over. The total as a whole, I'm just going to leave that alone. If I'm playing anything, it's going to be team totals.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys there, but in all aspects of it, if it was a Heat team total under, Celtics team total over, makes a lot of sense to me. Well, with that said, guys, let's move on to the best bet section. Since I already kind of talked about mine, I'll just go first here. It is that Tatum over 5.5 assists. I got it at -130. Gave that out to clients at -130. In the first 3 games, he only averaged 3.7 assists on 8.3 potential assists. And like I mentioned earlier with Marcus Smart, he was more of the facilitator in the first 3 games there, 7.3 assists and 11 potential. But if we flip the script now, we look at the last 2 games, he's been averaging 9 assists per game on 13.5 potential, taking a lot of that from Marcus Smart, where now Marcus Smart is only averaging 4 on 4.5 potential. So the offense, they found some success with Tatum being the facilitator. They're probably going to need to stick with that. It's really hard to defend someone that is with that much well-rounded like offense. And if he's going to show that he's going to trust his teammates and be that facilitator that they need, that makes him a bigger threat offensively. So they got to continue doing that here, even in Miami, to force that Game 7. I'm going to trust that they do that. And take that over 5.5 assists. So that's my best bet for today's show. Over on the premium side, I do have a WNBA play. I do also have one MLB play as well. Obviously, we all of us touch on multiple sports here, Tony and Matt as well. So if you guys looking at packages, make sure you guys look at all the all access packages, because those are definitely more worth it than taking on one specific sport there. Matt, let's go to you here to your best bet and also what you got going on over at SportsMemo.
Yeah, right now over at SportsMemo, I have one play loaded for tomorrow. Basically been just going straight NBA the entire playoffs. Been running very well with the NBA throughout the playoffs. So just been sticking with that. Once that ends, I'm going to go back to the UFC, start breaking down some of those cards, have more plays loaded there. But, like I said yesterday, we had Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown started off great, had 15 points at half, ended up missing that. I think you could go back there. I like when Jaylen Brown gets a little confident, gets things going. But that's not who I'm going to have today. Today we are going to have Jimmy Butler over 28.5 points. And a lot of this has to do with, what we've talked about the entire show. Kyle Lowry hindered. Gabe Vincent hindered, whether he plays or not. Max Strus inconsistent. Duncan Robinson, a lot of inconsistencies on this Miami Heat team, and Jimmy Butler is that focal point. He is that staple. If this team is going to go out and win this game, it's going to be through Jimmy Butler. Even if they compete, I think it's with Jimmy, because you go back and you take a look at even this Bucks series. Jimmy Butler was the one who took control. He gave confidence to this Miami Heat team that they can compete with anyone, and I think he's going to do the same here. I also think the volume. A lot of it just boils down to volume. When Jimmy Butler was really rolling, he was taking 20 shots. He was taking 25-plus shots at times. And I think that's what he's going to have to do in this game for this Heat team to even have a chance to compete. So we know who Jimmy Butler is from a competitive standpoint. We know how streaky he can get, how aggressive he can get, and getting to that free throw line. Jimmy Butler's magic number is generally 10 free throws in a game. 10 free throws for Jimmy Butler generally leads to a Heat win. Although I do not think the Heat are going to win this game, I think Jimmy Butler knows what he has to do to try and keep this close, to try and keep this game competitive in addition to that. So for me, I think it's Jimmy Butler over 28.5 points in this spot for today's best bet.
Makes a lot of sense to me. It almost seems like a must-win situation here. Like we said earlier, they don't want to see Boston in the game 7 here. Tony, let's go to you. What's your best bet? Also, what do you got going on over at Wager Talk?
Over at Wager Talk, I do like Matt. I'll have a Game 6 report. I already started the Game 6 report. It's up. So it's in the shopping cart. You can get that and get it for $15 at Wager Talk. It's 15 because of the limited number of plays or at least positions I've taken so far, but there'll be some additions. And this leads right into my best bet. You know, if you like Boston to win this, if you like Boston to win Game 6, then you probably like them to win Game 7. I'm making some assumptions, but I think that's logical. If we can take sports from a logical approach, I'm not sure that's very logical, right? But because few things happen logically, at least as those informed would believe they would. Yesterday's game was a little bit of an aberration, right? I mean, Boston did exactly what I thought they would do. Many didn't. Butler, sits out the final. What's Spoelstra doing, guys? Butler sits out the final 9 minutes. If let's just go to this. Right after the game, two things were said. In quotes, I'm a big quote guy. Teddy Covers and I talk about this all the time. Quotes, quotes, quotes. That's how, if you don't have people inside the locker room, this is where you go. You go to quotes, you know who you trust, you know who's going to be transparent, you know who's BSing, you know who's probably telling the truth. But, when Game 6 comes along, Butler said, listen, this is what he said. We just have to close it out at home. Why did he say that? He doesn't want to go back to Boston for Game 7. We all three know that, right? And everyone listening should probably know that as well. Spoelstra said, listen, he says, one game doesn't lead to the next game. It just doesn't matter. It's about collectively preparing and putting together a great game. We'll play much better on Saturday. That's all we have to do. That's all we have to focus on right now. Spoelstra's telling you the same thing. They're all in on Game 6 because they don't want a Game 7. If you want to play money line, if you like, right now you can get anywhere between plus 115 and plus 125 on the Celtics to win the East, which means you're parlaying Game 6 to Game 7. Right now you're looking at a minus 150, right around there on Boston at a minus 2.5, minus 3. And then you're going to probably have to parlay it to a minus 300, though. If they win 6, they're going to be minus 8, minus 8.5 in Boston in Game 7, right? That's what they've been every game since at home in this series, which means you're going to get back about 125. You're going to get back about plus 125. So to make it easy and simple, so you don't have to be sober to make sure you do your if bet virtually all by yourself. Let's just do it right here. Let's take Boston to win the East. Plus 125 is the best price I could find. 115 was the worst price out there. That means they have to win Game 6, win 7. They move on to face Denver in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, man, this is really crazy to just see that it might be that situation where we do finally see a team down 0-3 and get the series win. I think Boston is definitely capable of doing it. Obviously, when both teams were down 0-3, guys, before we close out the show, when both teams were down 0-3, the books had I think it was plus 1150 for the Lakers to make the finals, and then it was like plus 750 for the Boston Celtics to make the finals. It just goes to show how smart the books are, and as far as putting up the right odds, like they knew Boston had a better chance of getting there than the Lakers. And now we're seeing plus 125. This is a historic run here for the Celtics. We'll see what type of momentum they bring if they end up winning. In the Game 7 will be on Monday, not Sunday. So we will have a show on Monday if there is a Game 7. And that should be possibly, we'll talk about it, possibly 4 people on the panel. We'll see what happens. But till then, guys, on Monday, hopefully we'll see you guys on Monday. And good luck with all your action. Till next time, peace.
Peace.